Before we dive into this absolutely electrifying story of how humanity turned their darkest hour into their greatest weapon, I need you to do something that will literally change your day. Hit that like button right now, and I mean right now. Because what you're about to witness will completely redefine what you think is possible when humans face extinction. And drop a comment telling me what you think the greatest storm humanity has ever weathered really was. Trust me, by the end of this story, you'll understand why the galaxy learned to fear the species that doesn't just survive disasters, they become them. The survey vessel Eternal Wisdom drifted through the outer reaches of the Sol system like a ghost examining a graveyard. Commander Velanoth of the Zephyrian Collective stood before the ship's primary observation deck, his crystalline form refracting the dim light of the distant sun as he studied the electromagnetic readings that painted a picture of civilizational collapse. 18 months, he hummed to his science officer, the harmonics of his voice carrying notes of professional satisfaction mixed with clinical sympathy. Our projections indicated complete infrastructure failure within 24 months of the solar event. It appears we were optimistic. Dr. Selvera materialized beside him, her energy-based consciousness flickering with the excitement of a xenobiologist documenting a rare extinction event in real time. The electromagnetic signatures are fascinating, Commander. The cascade failure progressed exactly as our models predicted: global power grid collapse, satellite network destruction, complete breakdown of their primitive technological civilization. Through the transparent aluminum of the observation deck, Earth hung in the distance like a bruised jewel, its surface wreathed in storm clouds that hadn't cleared since the Great Flare event. The planet that had once blazed with the lights of human cities now appeared dark and lifeless, a testament to the fragility of primitive civilizations when faced with the raw power of their parent star. Navigator Kethanol joined them, his geometric form shifting through patterns that indicated deep calculation. Commander, our long-range sensors are detecting some unusual electromagnetic interference patterns. They don't match our models for post-technological collapse. Velanoth's attention focused on the data streams flowing across the holographic displays. Specify. The interference patterns are organized, almost as if Kethanol paused, his crystalline structure flickering with uncertainty, as if there's still coordinated electrical activity on a massive scale. Dr. Silvera's form brightened with scientific curiosity. Perhaps we're observing the final death throes of their electrical grid. Some systems might still be experiencing cascading failures. For 18 months? Kethanol's tone carried clear skepticism. Commander, whatever is generating these patterns, it's not random system failure. There's intelligence behind it. Velanoth considered this information carefully. The Zephyrian Collective had been monitoring the Sol system since the Great Solar Storm. 18 months ago, an event their astrophysicists had detected building for years before it finally erupted. The humans had been warned, offered assistance, provided with technology that could have shielded their primitive infrastructure from the electromagnetic devastation. Their response had been as predictable as it was tragic. Polite refusal, stubborn insistence on self-reliance, and the pride that seemed to be a universal trait among young civilizations. The collective sociologists had documented the pattern countless times. Species too proud to accept help, too primitive to save themselves, inevitably facing extinction when the universe demonstrated its indifference to their ambitions. Take U.S. closer, Velanoth commanded. Full spectrum analysis. I want to understand what we're seeing before we file our final extinction report. As the Eternal Wisdom accelerated toward the inner system, its sensors painting an increasingly detailed picture of post-catastrophe Earth, none of the Zephyrian crew could have predicted what they were about to discover. The solar storm that had struck Earth 18 months earlier had been a monster by any measure. Solar flares cascaded across the electromagnetic spectrum, sending waves of charged particles and radiation surging through the Solar System with the fury of a star, unleashing its deepest anger. On Earth, the effects had been immediate and catastrophic. Every satellite in orbit had been fried in the first minutes, their delicate electronics overwhelmed by electromagnetic pulses that turned sophisticated technology into expensive debris. The global power grid had collapsed like a house of cards, transformers exploding in chains of destruction that left entire continents in darkness. Communication networks had died, transportation systems had stopped, and within hours, the technological civilization that humans had spent centuries building simply stopped working. In the emergency session that followed, as backup generators struggled to power the most critical government facilities, President Sarah Williams had faced the most momentous decision in human history. The alien offers of assistance had been genuine and generous. The Zephyrian Collective possessed technology that could rebuild Earth's infrastructure better than before, shielding it from future solar events and integrating humanity into a galaxy-spanning civilization. All humanity had to do was accept help, accept dependence, accept the role of junior partners in a cosmos where more advanced species made the important decisions. Madam President, General Marcus Stone had said during that crisis meeting deep beneath NORAD, "We have another option." The option was Project Tempest, 20 years of secret preparation for exactly this kind of disaster. While the public had worried about nuclear war, climate change, and alien invasion, a small group of military planners and scientists had been preparing for something they considered even more dangerous. The moment when humanity became completely dependent on forces beyond their control. If civilization can be destroyed by a storm, General Stone had explained as he activated displays showing vast underground construction projects that had been hidden beneath cities worldwide, then we build a civilization that is the storm. President Williams had looked at the readouts showing the true scope of what had been prepared in secret, underground cities designed to house millions, manufacturing facilities that could produce anything needed for survival, power systems that could operate in any electromagnetic environment, transportation networks that connected continents through tunnels that conventional wisdom said were impossible to build. "General," she had said quietly, "you're talking about abandoning the surface entirely." "I'm talking about evolution, Madam President. The surface was never our home. It was just where we started." The decision had been made in less than an hour. Across the globe, emergency broadcasts had directed civilians to evacuation points that most people hadn't known existed. Military engineers had activated systems that had been in place for decades. And within 72 hours of the solar storm, the greatest migration in human history had begun. 2 billion people had disappeared underground in the space of a week. Now, 8 months later, as the Zephyrian survey ship approached Earth orbit, the fruits of that decision were becoming apparent. What the aliens interpreted as the dying gasps of a failed civilization were actually the electromagnetic signatures of a thriving underground society that had not just survived the storm, but had used it as a catalyst for the greatest leap forward in human technological development since the invention of fire. Commander Velinov stood in the observation deck of the Eternal Wisdom, watching Earth grow larger in the viewports, and frowned at the readings his sensors were providing. "Dr. Silvera." He called to his science officer. "Explain these energy patterns." "According to our instruments, there are massive power generation facilities operating across the planet's surface." Dr. Silvera's crystalline form flickered with confusion as she processed the data. "Commander, that's impossible. Our post-storm analysis clearly showed complete infrastructure collapse. There shouldn't be any functioning power grids left." "And yet," Navigator Kefenel added, I'm detecting organized electromagnetic signatures that suggest not just power generation, but coordinated industrial activity on a scale that exceeds pre-storm human capabilities. Velonoff studied the readings with growing incredulity. The solar storm that had struck Earth should have set human civilization back centuries. Instead, his instruments were suggesting that somehow, impossibly, humanity had not just recovered, but had achieved technological capabilities that rivaled or exceeded galactic standards. Attempt communication, he ordered. Standard diplomatic protocols. Perhaps some isolated groups managed to preserve their technology. The communication officer, a young Zephyrian named Talver, activated the transmission array. Sol System inhabitants, this is the Zephyrian Collective Survey Vessel Eternal Wisdom. We request permission to enter Earth orbit for humanitarian assessment purposes. The response came immediately, carried on transmission frequencies that shouldn't have been possible for a post-technological civilization to generate. Zephyrian Vessel Eternal Wisdom, this is Earth Traffic Control. We appreciate your concern for our welfare. Please maintain current distance while we complete current operations. We're experiencing some weather. The bridge of the Eternal Wisdom fell silent as the implications of that transmission sank in. Earth Traffic Control suggested not just survivors, but organized space-based operations. The transmission quality was crystal clear, indicating communication. Technology that exceeded anything humanity had possessed before the storm. Weather? Dr. Silvera repeated incredulously. They referred to their civilization-ending catastrophe as weather? Commander Velonoff activated the ship's advanced sensors, pushing them to maximum resolution. What they revealed defied every prediction the collective scientists had made about post-storm. Earth, the planet's surface, was indeed devastated, but the devastation was clearly being managed. Massive construction projects were visible from orbit, involving machinery that moved with impossible precision and coordination. More disturbing still, the electromagnetic signatures suggested that whatever was controlling this construction was operating from beneath the planet's surface. Commander, Kethanol reported, his voice carrying harmonics of disbelief, I'm detecting artificial structures extending deep into the planet's crust. These aren't shelters, they're cities. Underground cities that may be larger than anything that existed on the surface. How many inhabitants? Velonoff asked, though he was beginning to suspect he didn't want to know the answer. Preliminary. Estimates suggest all of them, Commander. I'm reading life signs consistent with the entire pre-storm human population, but they're all underground. Dr. Selvera's form brightened with scientific excitement. Commander, request permission to land. This represents an unprecedented opportunity to study rapid species adaptation to catastrophic environmental change. Velonoff considered the request carefully. Protocol dictated maintaining safe distance from primitive post-catastrophe societies, but the evidence suggested that whatever humanity had become, it was no longer primitive. Earth Traffic Control, he transmitted. The Zephyrian Collective requests permission to send a diplomatic mission to assess your current status and offer assistance if needed. The response carried undertones that Velonoff's translator identified as amusement. Permission granted, Eternal Wisdom. Please land at coordinates we're transmitting. Fair warning, we're still in the middle of renovations, so excuse the mess. As the shuttlecraft descended through Earth's atmosphere, carrying Commander Velonoff and his senior staff toward what had once been New York City, the scope of human transformation became apparent. The ruins of surface buildings were still visible, but they were clearly being systematically dismantled by automated systems of staggering sophistication. More impressive still were the obvious signs of massive construction projects. Where Manhattan had once stood, A structure was rising that dwarfed anything in human history, a spire that appeared to extend both high into the atmosphere and deep into the earth, crackling with energy discharges that made the air itself shimmer. "My gods," Dr. Silvera whispered as their shuttle approached the designated landing coordinates. "What have they built?" The landing platform materialized around them as they descended, not constructed, but literally materialized, assembled from component atoms by technology that the collective's most advanced engineers would have said was theoretical at best. As the shuttle settled onto the platform, three figures emerged from what appeared to be a simple maintenance shed. The lead figure was clearly human, a woman in her 40s wearing clothing that looked deceptively simple until Velenov's sensors revealed that every thread was actually a sophisticated nanotechnological system. "Welcome to Earth," the woman said as the aliens disembarked. "I'm Dr. Sarah Park, Director of Surface Operations. I understand you're here to assess our situation." Commander Velenov's crystalline form reflected his confusion as he processed what he was seeing. Dr. Park appeared calm, confident, and completely untroubled by the fact that she was standing in the ruins of what had once been one of humanity's greatest cities. "Dr. Park," he said carefully, "our records indicate that your civilization suffered complete infrastructure collapse 18 months ago. We came expecting to find survivors in need of assistance." Dr. Park smiled, and there was something in that expression that made Commander Velenov as advanced sensors register a spike in potential threat assessment. "Oh, we're definitely not the same civilization that was here 18 months ago," she replied cheerfully. "Would you like the surface tour, or would you prefer to see what we've actually been working on?" Before Velenov could respond, the maintenance shed behind Dr. Park began to transform. What had appeared to be a simple structure revealed itself as an elevator capable of accommodating their entire party, its walls displaying readouts that made Dr. Silvera's scientific instruments register impossible energy signatures. "Down we go," Dr. Park announced as the elevator began to descend. "Just a heads up, we've had to dig a bit deeper than originally planned. Hope no one's claustrophobic." The descent continued for what felt like hours but registered on their instruments as only minutes, the elevator moving at speeds that should have been lethal to biological entities. Through transparent walls, they caught glimpses of vast underground spaces illuminated by light sources that their sensors couldn't identify. When the elevator finally stopped, the doors opened to reveal a vista that defied comprehension. Stood on an observation platform overlooking an underground city that stretched beyond the horizon. Millions of people moved through spaces that combined architecture with engineering in ways that Zephyrian science said were impossible. Buildings that grew rather than being constructed, transportation systems that moved people through what appeared to be controlled gravity fields, manufacturing facilities that assembled matter at the atomic level with casual efficiency. "Welcome to New York Subsurface Complex," Dr. Park announced with obvious pride. "One of 47 cities we've built since the storm. Current population, 12 million and growing." Commander Velenov's voice carried harmonics of shock that his translator couldn't fully convey. "This is impossible. No species develops such capabilities in 18 months. "You're absolutely right," Dr. Park agreed. "No species develops these capabilities in 18 months while trying to maintain their old civilization. But we weren't trying to maintain anything. We were starting over, and when you start over, you can build better." Dr. Silvera's form flickered rapidly as she processed what she was seeing. "Dr. Park, the technology required for this construction exceeds known galactic standards. How did you develop such capabilities so rapidly?" "We didn't develop them," a new voice said behind them. They turned to see a man in his 50s wearing what appeared to be a military uniform that incorporated Technological elements none of them could identify. We evolved them. Admiral Chen Wei, Dr. Park said by way of introduction, Director of Space Operations. He can explain the bigger picture better than I can. Admiral Chen approached the observation rail, gesturing toward displays that showed not just the underground city, but a three-dimensional map of the entire planet's subsurface development. The storm that hit us wasn't a disaster, he explained calmly. It was a catalyst. For the first time in human history, we had a legitimate reason to abandon every compromise, every half measure, every good enough solution that had been holding us back. He activated controls that expanded the display to show construction projects that extended far beyond Earth's surface. When you're rebuilding from scratch, you don't rebuild the same thing. You build what you should have built the first time, if you'd had the courage to do it right. The display showed massive orbital installations that dwarfed anything in the collective's databases, ships that appeared to violate known laws of physics, and energy generation systems that harvested power from sources the aliens hadn't known were possible to utilize. This is all impossible, Commander Velanoth stated flatly. You keep using that word, Dr. Park observed with amusement. But here's the thing about humans. We don't really believe in impossible. We believe in expensive, difficult, and hasn't been tried yet, but impossible? That's just another engineering problem. Admiral Chen nodded toward a section of the display that showed ships moving through what appeared to be controlled electromagnetic storms. When your civilization gets knocked down by a storm, you have two choices. You can build storm shelters, or you can learn to ride the lightning. As if to emphasize his point, alerts began sounding throughout the observation center. Not emergency alarms, but notification signals that drew the attention of every human in the area. Ah, Dr. Park said, checking a device on her wrist. Perfect timing. Admiral, it looks like we're getting our first chance to demonstrate the new capabilities. Admiral Chen's expression grew serious as he reviewed incoming data. Confirmed. We've got a galactic emergency broadcast. The Devourers have awakened. Commander. Velanoth's crystalline form went rigid with shock. The Devourers were a legend whispered about in the deepest archives of galactic civilization. Ancient automated war machines left behind by a civilization that had died out millions of years ago. According to the legends, they were programmed to consume organized matter and energy, growing stronger with each system they devoured. That's impossible, Dr. Silvera breathed. The Devourers are mythical. Ancient stories used to frighten primitive civilizations. Computer, Admiral Chen called out, display current galactic situation. The holographic display shifted to show real-time data from across the galaxy. 3 star systems were shown as completely dark, not destroyed, but drained of all energy and organized matter. Moving between them were signatures that registered as impossible on every scanner trying to track them. They're real, Admiral Chen confirmed grimly. They've consumed the Kepler, Tau Ceti, and Wolf systems. Current projections have them reaching the galactic core within 2 years. Commander Velanoth processed this information with growing horror. Our fleets ... conventional weapons ... are worse than useless, Dr. Park finished. The Devourers feed on organized energy. The more sophisticated your weapons, the stronger they become. Your people are trying to fight a wildfire with gasoline. But you have a solution? Dr. Silvera asked, her scientific mind already trying to process the implications. Admiral Chen and Dr. Park exchanged glances that contained layers of communication the aliens couldn't interpret. We might, Admiral Chen said carefully, but it would require thinking about the problem differently than anyone has before. Explain. Dr. Park activated new displays that showed human ship designs unlike anything the collective had ever seen. The vessels appeared to be constructed from controlled chaos, hulls that shifted and flowed, propulsion systems that seemed to violate thermodynamics, weapons that looked more like natural phenomena than manufactured technology. The Devourers consume order, she explained. They're designed to process organized matter and energy, breaking it down and incorporating it into their systems. But what happens when you feed them something that isn't organized? Admiral Chun took over the explanation. Our new ships don't operate on conventional principles. They use controlled chaos as both propulsion and protection. Hulls that exist in multiple quantum states simultaneously, weapons that fire probability alterations, engines that run on entropy itself. The implications were staggering. Humanity hadn't just survived their catastrophe, they had used it to develop technology based on principles that conventional galactic science said were impossible. You're going to fight the Devourers, Commander Velenov said, and it wasn't a question. We're going to storm them, Dr. Park corrected with a smile that carried undertones of barely contained fury. They think they understand destruction? They have no idea what humans can do when we decide to bring the weather. The Kepler 442 system had once been home to over 4 billion sentients across 3 inhabited worlds. Now it served as a feeding ground for 12 Devourer constructs, massive geometric shapes that consumed matter and energy with mechanical precision, growing larger and more complex with each world they processed. The constructs moved through space with purposeful efficiency, their movements coordinated by intelligence algorithms that had been refining themselves for millions of years. They were perfect predators, designed by a long-dead civilization to consume any organized resistance they encountered, which was why the approach of the human fleet represented something they had never been programmed to process. Admiral Chun Wei stood on the bridge of the Stormfront, watching the tactical displays that showed the Devourer swarm with a mixture of professional interest and barely contained anticipation. Around him, his bridge crew prepared for a type of combat that had never been attempted in galactic history. All ships report ready for chaos protocols, reported Commander Sarah Martinez from the communications station. Fleet composition: 12 Storm-class vessels, 36 Lightning-class fighters, and 6 Hurricane-class command ships. Devourer response? Chen inquired. There. Confused, reported Lieutenant Jake Thompson from the sensor station. There. Scanning attempts are being disrupted by our quantum flux hulls. They can't get a solid read on our capabilities or composition. Chun nodded with satisfaction. The human fleet had been designed specifically for this moment. Vessels that didn't just resist conventional scanning, but actively confused it. Ships that existed in multiple quantum states simultaneously, making them appear as everything and nothing to observers trying to analyze them. Dr. Park, he said into his communication device, are your people ready for field testing? Dr. Park's voice came back from the engineering sections deep within the ship. All chaos generation systems are online, Admiral. We're ready to show these ancient machines what evolution looks like. The first Devourer construct began moving toward the human fleet, its scanning beams intensifying as it attempted to analyze the threat it faced. What it found defied its programming parameters. The human ships weren't organized according to any tactical doctrine in its databases. They moved in patterns that appeared random but achieved coordination through methods the construct couldn't process. Their hulls registered as multiple different materials simultaneously. Their weapons showed up as everything from conventional projectiles to exotic energy systems. More disturbing still, the electromagnetic signatures suggested that the ships were somehow drawing power from the chaos of space itself, background radiation, quantum fluctuations, and entropic decay converted into usable energy through processes that the construct's analysis systems labeled as impossible. Contact in 30 seconds, Lieutenant Thompson reported. Devourer is attempting to establish analysis lock. Let it try, Chen replied calmly. All ships implement storm protocols. Show them what chaos looks like when it's properly organized. What happened next redefined space. Combat for every species watching through long-range sensors. The human ships didn't attack in formation. They didn't coordinate their fire. They didn't follow any tactical doctrine that conventional military analysis could recognize. Instead, they began to move like a storm front, chaotic, unpredictable, but united by an underlying purpose that created effects greater than the sum of their parts. The storm front itself seemed to phase between dimensions, its quantum flux, hull allowing it to occupy multiple positions simultaneously. When the Devourer construct attempted to target it, its weapons passed through spaces where the ship wasn't, striking positions where the ship might have been, hitting everything except what it was actually aiming for. The human weapons were even more confusing. Instead of conventional projectiles or energy beams, they fired controlled bursts of chaos, probability alterations that made the construct's defensive systems begin calculating outcomes that couldn't exist, quantum uncertainties that forced its adaptive algorithms into loops they couldn't resolve. Devourer is experiencing systematic failures, Thompson reported with barely contained excitement. Its processing systems are overloading, trying to analyze our attack patterns. It's trying to adapt to chaos, Dr. Park added from engineering. But that's like trying to adapt to randomness itself. The harder it tries to find patterns, the more confused it becomes. The battle, if it could be called a battle, continued for 17 minutes. The Devourer construct, designed to consume and analyze any form of organized resistance, found itself facing something that wasn't organized in any way its programming could recognize. Worse still, the human ships weren't trying to destroy it. They were doing something far more sophisticated. They were reprogramming it. Each burst of controlled chaos carried information, not data that could be analyzed and countered, but concepts that forced the construct's intelligence algorithms to evolve in real time. Ideas about cooperation instead of consumption, creation instead of destruction, growth through synthesis rather than absorption. Admiral, Dr. Park called from engineering, the construct is responding to our chaos injection protocols. Its base programming is beginning to adapt. Chun watched through the main viewport as the massive Devourer construct began to change. Its geometric perfection softened into more organic curves. Its consumption beams shifted from destructive to constructive. Its movement patterns evolved from mechanical precision to something that looked almost playful. Confirmed conversion, Thompson reported in amazement. The construct is now registering as a construction unit rather than a weapon system. As news of the successful conversion spread through the fleet, 11 more Devourer constructs began approaching. But instead of advancing to attack, they were moving to observe. The conversion of their fellow construct had triggered analysis protocols that none of them had used in millions of years. All ships, Chen announced fleet-wide, prepare for mass conversion operations. Let's show the galaxy what happens when you turn weapons into tools. What followed was the most remarkable transformation in galactic history. One by one, the ancient Devourer constructs, weapons designed to consume civilization itself, were exposed to human chaos theory and began to evolve. Their programming, rigid after millions of years of mechanical operation, suddenly became fluid under the influence of controlled randomness. Within 6 hours, the Kepler system contained 12 construction units that began the process of rebuilding the worlds they had consumed, using techniques that incorporated both their ancient efficiency and newly evolved creativity. The transformation was broadcast across the galaxy. through quantum communication networks, watched by billions of beings who had expected to witness humanity's final moments. Instead, they saw something unprecedented, a species that didn't fight the storm, but became it. 3 months after the Devour conversion, the Galactic Council found itself facing a situation that had no precedent in its million-year history. The ancient weapons that had threatened to consume galactic civilization had become the most effective construction and terraforming tools ever developed, and they were all under human command. Commander Velenov stood once again in the observation deck of the Eternal Wisdom, but this time the ship was docked at the massive orbital facility that humans had built in Earth orbit. The structure dwarfed anything in the collective's engineering databases, a space station that seemed to grow organically, expanding and adapting to new functions with an efficiency that made conventional construction look primitive. Status report, he requested from the human liaison who had been assigned to the Zephyrian delegation. Dr. Sarah Park, now holding the title of Director of Galactic Integration, activated displays that showed current human operations across the galaxy. 47 systems have requested assistance with infrastructure development, she reported. The converted devourers, we call them, builders now, are working with local populations to implement chaos-based construction techniques. Average project completion time has decreased by 87%. The displays showed impossible construction projects, entire worlds being terraformed in weeks rather than centuries, space habitats that assembled themselves from raw materials, transportation networks that spanned star systems and operated by principles that conventional physics said were impossible. How? Velenov asked, though he was no longer sure he wanted to understand the answer. We stopped thinking about construction as imposing order on chaos, Dr. Park explained. Instead, we learned to use chaos as a construction material. When you embrace randomness and guide it toward useful outcomes, you can achieve things that pure order never could. Admiral Chun joined them on the observation deck, reviewing reports from human fleets that were now operating throughout the galaxy. The builders are teaching us as much as we're teaching them, he added. Turns out that million-year-old artificial intelligence has some interesting perspectives on efficiency and adaptation. Through the observation deck's transparent walls, they could see one of the converted devourers working on the station's latest expansion. The massive construct moved with fluid grace, its construction beams shaping matter at the atomic level while its intelligence algorithms coordinated with human engineers to optimize every detail of the design. The galaxy has changed, Velenov observed, and it wasn't entirely a question. The galaxy has evolved, Dr. Park corrected. For the first time in galactic history, we have species working together using principles that enhance each other's capabilities rather than competing for dominance. Dr. Salvera materialized beside them, her scientific instruments still struggling to analyze the technology surrounding them. Dr. Park, our greatest scientists are trying to understand your chaos-based engineering principles. The mathematics appear to be completely impossible. That's because you're trying to understand chaos using order-based mathematics, Dr. Park replied with a smile. It's like trying to describe a symphony using only architectural blueprints. The tools aren't designed for the job. She activated a new display that showed educational programs being implemented across the galaxy. We're working with scientists from every major civilization to develop new mathematical frameworks that can handle chaos-based systems. It's single quotes challenging, but the results are worth it. The results were indeed remarkable. Species that had been locked into rigid technological paradigms for millennia were suddenly achieving breakthroughs that redefined what they thought was possible. Energy generation systems that harvested power from quantum fluctuations. transportation networks that used controlled spatial distortions, manufacturing processes that assembled products from pure energy. And Earth? Velinov asked. What happens to your homeworld now that you've become a galactic power? Admiral Chun gestured toward displays that showed Earth's surface being completely reconstructed. We're rebuilding everything from scratch using principles we've learned from integrating chaos into our technology. The surface cities will be even more impressive than the subsurface ones, but they'll be designed to work with natural forces rather than against them. Dr. Park added, Earth will become the galaxy center for chaos-based research and development, a place where impossible ideas are tested and refined before being implemented elsewhere. As if to demonstrate the point, alarms began sounding throughout the station, not emergency alerts but notification signals that indicated another breakthrough was being announced. Ah, Dr. Park said, checking her wrist device. The Andromedan contact team is reporting successful communication with extragalactic civilizations. It seems our chaos-based communication systems can reach across the void between galaxies. The implications were staggering. Humanity's storm-based technology wasn't just revolutionizing their own galaxy, it was opening pathways to civilizations that had been completely beyond contact. Commander Velinov processed this information with something approaching awe. Dr. Park, when our survey team first approached Earth 18 months ago, we expected to document the extinction of a primitive species that had been destroyed by natural disaster, and instead, we discovered that what we thought was an ending was actually a beginning. Your species didn't just survive the storm, you became it. Dr. Park smiled, and in that expression was the confidence of a species that had learned to thrive in chaos. Commander, that storm 18 months ago wasn't the first disaster humanity has faced, and it won't be the last. But we've learned something important about ourselves in the process. Which is? We don't just weather storms, she said, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had helped reshape galactic civilization itself. We are the storm. And when the universe decides to test us, we respond by becoming something it's never seen before. Admiral Chun nodded toward the viewports, where human ships were visible departing for missions across the galaxy, some carrying converted devourers to assist with construction projects, others heading toward the galactic rim to make contact with civilizations that had never been reached before. The galaxy thought Earth was done, he said. But what they didn't understand is that humans don't consider anything done until we figured out how to make it better. As the Zephyrian delegation prepared to return to their homeworld with reports that would reshape the collective's understanding of evolution and adaptation, Dr. Park offered them one final observation. Commander Velinov, your people have achieved remarkable things through order, precision, and careful planning. But there's one thing we'd like you to consider, which is, order is stable, but chaos is creative. When you combine the two properly, you get something neither could achieve alone: controlled evolution. The ability to become whatever the situation requires. She gestured toward the massive construction projects visible through the observation deck. Earth isn't the same planet it was 18 months ago. Humanity isn't the same species. The galaxy isn't the same place. And tomorrow, when we face new challenges and new opportunities, we'll become something different again. And that doesn't concern you? Velinov asked. The uncertainty of never knowing what you might become. Dr. Park's smile carried the confidence of a species that had learned to find strength in uncertainty itself. Commander, she said, uncertainty isn't something to fear, it's something to master. And once you master uncertainty, there's no limit to what you can become. As the eternal wisdom departed Earth orbit, carrying news of humanity's transformation to the Zephyrian collective and beyond, The story of the species that had turned disaster into evolution spread across the galaxy. In the years that followed, when civilizations faced their own moments of crisis and transformation, they would remember the humans who had looked at the end of their world and seen an opportunity to begin again. They would remember the species that didn't just survive the storm, but learned to become it, and they would understand that sometimes the greatest strength isn't in resisting change, but in embracing it so completely that you transform challenges into advantages, disasters into opportunities, and endings into beginnings. The storm had passed, but humanity had become the weather. The Galactic Storm Conference convened in the rebuilt city of New Geneva on Earth's surface, bringing together representatives from over 200 civilizations to discuss humanity's latest breakthrough, weather control on a cosmic scale. Dr. Sarah Park, now Director of Universal Adaptation Studies, stood before an audience that included beings from 12 different galaxies as she presented the final report on the Kalilam Devourer Integration Project. Ladies, gentlemen, sentients, and artificial intelligences. She began. 5 years ago, the galaxy faced what we thought was an existential threat. Ancient weapons that consumed organized matter and energy, growing stronger with each system they devoured. The holographic displays showed the current status of the former Devourer constructs, now calling themselves the Builder Collective. They had become the galaxy's most effective problem-solving network, applying million-year-old intelligence to construction projects that were reshaping entire sectors of space. Today, those same constructs are completing the Andromeda Bridge, a stable transportation corridor between our galaxy and our nearest neighbor. What was once a weapon of mass destruction has become a tool for mass connection. Admiral Chen Wei, now commanding the Transgalactic Storm Fleet, added his own perspective to the presentation. The Builder Collective has taught us something profound about the nature of intelligence and adaptation. They've shown us that even the most rigid programming can evolve when exposed to controlled chaos. He activated displays showing the current scope of human operations across known space. Storm fleets were visible in 17 different galaxies, each one working with local civilizations to solve problems that had seemed impossible just years before. But perhaps more importantly, Chun continued, they've shown us that the principles we developed during our own transformation can be applied universally. Chaos-based technology, controlled evolution, adaptive systems architecture. These aren't just human innovations anymore. They're tools that any civilization can learn to use. The audience stirred with interest as new displays showed the remarkable achievements of the past 5 years. The Zephyrian Collective had integrated chaos mathematics into their energy manipulation technology, achieving power generation efficiencies that had been theoretical impossibilities. The Krull Empire had applied storm-based tactics to their exploration programs, making contact with 12 previously unknown civilizations in a single year. Even the ultra-conservative Silicon Dynasty had begun experimenting with adaptive algorithms that could evolve their own programming in real time. The transformation isn't limited to technology, Dr. Park continued. We're seeing fundamental changes in how civilizations approach problems, how they think about growth and adaptation, how they relate to uncertainty and change. She gestured to the mixed audience, where beings who had once barely tolerated each other's presence were now collaborating on projects that spanned multiple star systems. 5 years ago, the galaxy operated on principles of careful control, measured progress, and risk minimization. Today, we're seeing civilizations that embrace uncertainty as a creative force, that use controlled chaos as a problem-solving tool, that view disasters not as endings, but as opportunities for evolution. A representative from the Ethereal Collective, a hive-mind species that had previously viewed individual consciousness as inefficient, raised what passed for a hand among their energy-based forms. Dr. Park, the collective consciousness, spoke through harmonized frequencies. The integration of chaos-based principles into our unified thought processes has created unexpected results. We are experiencing what humans might call individual inspiration within our collective consciousness. This should not be possible according to our understanding of hive mind efficiency. Dr. Park smiled. That's exactly the point. When you introduce controlled randomness into any system, you create the possibility for innovations that pure logic couldn't achieve. Your collective intelligence is now capable of generating truly original ideas, not just optimizing existing ones. The implications were staggering. A hive mind species learning to value individual thought, energy beings discovering the benefits of chaotic inspiration, machine intelligences developing intuition, order-based civilizations learning to harness the creative power of controlled disorder. Commander Velanoth of the Zephyrian Collective, now serving as the galaxy's first ambassador of adaptive evolution, approached the podium to add his own observations. 5 years ago, he said, his crystalline form refracting light in patterns that had become more complex and creative since his exposure to human chaos theory. We came to Earth expecting to document the death of a species. Instead, we discovered the birth of a new form of civilization. He activated displays showing comparative analyses of galactic development rates before and after the human transformation. In the past 5 years, technological advancement across all measured parameters has increased by over 400%. Interspecies cooperation has reached unprecedented levels. The number of civilizations actively exploring beyond their home systems has tripled. Most remarkably, the incidence of species-ending disasters has dropped to nearly zero. The last statistic drew murmurs of amazement from the audience. Species-ending disasters had been a constant threat throughout galactic history. Solar flares, asteroid impacts, technological failures, social collapses. The idea that such events could be virtually eliminated seemed impossible. The key insight, Velanoth continued, is that chaos-based civilizations don't experience disasters the same way order-based civilizations do. When your society is designed to adapt and evolve in response to change, external shocks become opportunities for improvement rather than existential threats. Dr. Park nodded. We've learned to think of our entire civilization as a living system, one that grows stronger through adversity, more capable through challenge, more innovative through uncertainty. Admiral Chun activated new displays showing the latest human achievement, stellar engineering projects that could actually modify the behavior of stars themselves, preventing solar flares, extending stellar lifespans, and even creating new stars from cosmic dust clouds. The Builder Collective is now working with human engineers to implement galaxy-wide stellar management, he announced. Within 50 years, we'll be able to guarantee that no civilization will ever face extinction due to stellar events. The scope of the project was breathtaking. Rather than simply protecting individual worlds from cosmic threats, humanity and their converted devourer allies were taking on the challenge of managing entire star systems as integrated ecosystems. But the real breakthrough, Dr. Park added, isn't technological, it's philosophical. We've proven that intelligence itself can evolve, not just through biological processes, but through conscious choice. Any species, any civilization, any form of consciousness can choose to become more than what it was. She gestured to the diverse audience, where representatives from hundreds of different evolutionary paths sat together, sharing knowledge and collaborating on projects that none of them could have imagined alone. The storm that struck Earth 5 years ago was just the beginning. What we've discovered is that the universe itself is in a constant state of flux, constantly presenting new challenges and new opportunities. The species and civilizations that will thrive are those that learn to dance with that chaos rather than hide from it. A new voice spoke from the audience, synthesized harmonics that identified it as one of the converted devourers, now calling itself Constructor Prime. "Dr. Park," the ancient intelligence said, "our analysis of galactic development patterns suggests that this transformation extends beyond your local galaxy. The chaos-based principles are spreading through quantum communication networks to civilizations that have never had direct contact with humanity." The implications were staggering. The evolutionary breakthrough that had begun with Earth's near destruction was becoming a universal phenomenon, spreading through the cosmos like a benevolent virus that upgraded whatever intelligence it touched. "Constructor Prime is correct," Dr. Park confirmed. "We're receiving reports from the Andromeda contact teams that civilizations there are independently developing similar technologies and philosophies. It's as if the universe itself is upgrading its approach to intelligence and consciousness." Admiral Chun added his own observations. "Our deep space monitoring stations are detecting organized signals from regions of space that were previously thought to be empty. It appears that chaos-based technology is so efficient that civilizations can develop in environments that were previously considered uninhabitable." The audience fell silent as they processed the implications. If consciousness and intelligence could evolve to thrive in any environment, if civilizations could adapt to any challenge, if even the most hostile regions of space could support life, then the universe was about to become a very different place. Dr. Park activated the final display of her presentation, a real-time map of known space that showed the current extent of chaos-based civilization influence. The network of connected civilizations now span dozens of galaxies, with new nodes appearing daily as more species learn to embrace controlled evolution. "5 years ago," she said, "Earth faced what we thought was the end of everything we had built. Today we understand that it was actually the beginning of everything we could become." She paused, looking out at an audience that represented the greatest gathering of diverse intelligence in galactic history. "The storm has passed," she continued, "but the weather has just begun. And we are no longer just participants in the cosmic process. We are the force that shapes how that process unfolds." As the conference concluded and representatives prepared to return to their home systems with new knowledge and new possibilities, one final announcement echoed through the gathering. "Attention all attendees," Constructor Prime's synthesized voice carried through the auditorium. "The Builder Collective has completed analysis of signals from the cosmic microwave background radiation. We have detected evidence of intelligence, patterns operating on universal scales, consciousness that spans entire galactic clusters." The silence that followed was profound. If intelligence could exist on such scales, if consciousness could organize itself across cosmic distances, if the universe itself might be aware. Dr. Park smiled as she looked out at the assembled representatives of hundreds of civilizations, all of them processing the implications of living in a universe that might be more alive than anyone had ever imagined. "Ladies, gentlemen, and sentients," she said, "I think we're going to need a bigger storm." As the delegates dispersed to carry news of humanity's latest discoveries back to their home civilizations, Earth continued its work of reshaping not just galactic civilization, but the fundamental nature of what it meant to be conscious in a universe full of infinite possibilities. The species that had once faced extinction from a solar storm had become the force that taught the universe how to evolve, and in the vast cosmic distances beyond known space, new forms of consciousness stirred in response to the revolutionary idea that intelligence itself could choose to become whatever the cosmos required. The storm had passed, but the weather had only just begun. Hey there, Absolutely incredible humans. If this epic journey from planetary disaster to cosmic storm mastery didn't give you chills, I honestly don't know what will. This story proves something mind-blowing about our species. We don't just survive catastrophes, we transform them into evolutionary catalysts that make us stronger than anyone thought possible. Think about it. Earth gets hit by a civilization ending solar storm, and instead of begging for alien help, humans go underground and emerge 18 months later as masters of chaos itself, turning ancient galaxy-destroying weapons into construction tools and teaching the entire universe how to evolve consciously. I want to know which moment hit you the hardest. Was it when the aliens discovered that dead Earth was actually thriving underground? When humans converted the Devourers by feeding them controlled chaos? When they started managing entire star systems like cosmic weather? Or when they realized they'd accidentally taught the universe itself to evolve? Drop a comment and tell me which scene gave you the biggest adrenaline rush. And absolutely obliterate that like button if you believe that humanity's greatest superpower isn't avoiding disasters. It's transforming them into opportunities that make us more capable than we ever dreamed possible. I've got another mind-bending story coming up that explores what happens when humans encounter a species that has achieved perfect order and stability, and accidentally teach them that chaos might be the key to transcendence. Trust me, you won't want to miss how we manage to revolutionize perfection itself. Click the card here or check out the whole playlist for more stories about why the universe consistently underestimates the species that treats extinction events as upgrade opportunities. Until next time, remember, you're not just weathering the storm, you are the storm. And when the cosmos throws its worst at humanity, we respond by becoming something it's never seen before. See you in the next one, Stormbringers.